Welcome everyone to another amazing episode of the Personnel Files, which is part of the Secret Friends Unite special Patreon content. If you're a Star Trek lover, definitely check out our bi-weekly podcast where we talk about all things Trek. That's called Code 47. You can also check out a bunch of other content that we do with Secret Friends Unite over at secretfriendsunite.com. If you listen to Code 47, you might recognize me. I am Kae Quinn, she, her, and I am co-hosting with my fabulous Missy.
Hello.
Say hi, Missy.
Hello, Missy, they, them. Glad to be back as always.
Also with us today is someone I'm very excited to chat with. You may know him as the fabulous and lovable scientist Linus from Star Trek Discovery. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining us. And additionally, real quick, we just want to give a very quick but heartfelt shout out and thank you to Cool Waters Production, who has been instrumental in making a lot of the Personnel Files happen. So thank you.
And speaking of
Amazing.
Cool Waters, they will be having their VIP party. It's annual now, and that happens at Star Trek Las Vegas. This year it's Thursday, August 3rd. It's taking place at the Golden Tiki. If you were going to be out for Star Trek Las Vegas, I can't recommend it enough. They have Trek-themed drinks. They have a raffle throughout the night. They get to have celebrity minglers. They'll get to talk to everybody in the crowd. The charity for the auction will be announced that night by celebrity guest host and my friend, Dougie Jones. And I'm actually stealing Kay this year to go, so if we are going, then you guys have to go.
Exactly. All right, well, without further ado, let's have some fun.
All right, so I'm going to tell a little bit of a trade secret we haven't talked about yet on Personnel Files, in that Kay and I always do research before we interview. We scour the internet to see what has David already been asked, so we can hopefully throw some new stuff out there and maybe have a little bit more fun.
Okay. Okay.
We like to keep you on your toes. So I did learn that you have been a Trekkie since your youth, getting started with the Next Gen. So with that, what kind of was the pull, or what attracted you to Star Trek?
I just loved the show. Like I loved the crew. I was particularly, I mean, I was drawn to Riker for like adolescent, like he was like this amazing masculine and but also emotional hero character, and I loved Jean-Luc Picard and Beverly Crusher. Like I loved the cast, and it felt like I could spend time with these people, and it was an hour of like thoughtful adventure, and it was like, you know, like you just find the things that you like and then you love them.
Fair. I think we can all attest to that, at least for our Trekdom. So
I love the thoughtful adventure. I've never heard of Star Trek referred to that way, but as someone who also joined with TNG, I think that's a very accurate way to put it.
Well, there's like, yeah, they would often explore very big ideas on that show, and there were like, I think my all-time favorite episode. Oh no, what's the name of it? I know this. Oh no.
Don't worry,
you'll know. Okay, so it's the poker game repeating loop, figuring out that they're in a repeating loop, and Data getting the cards to send a message to tell them how to advert.
Yes.
Like that was such an amazing episode, and I still I remember watching it and being like so drawn in, and it's like just the playing with time. These are like big, and it's handled really smartly, and it's a great adventure. It's perfect. It's perfect.
It really is one of the many
and how
examples.
We treat each other and how we are with each other, and like philosophy, like you know, I like when big questions are asked, because that's part of story's job, is to engage us and then ask questions of us that we have to figure out for ourselves about how we feel about a thing, or maybe open our minds to something that we hadn't considered. And I think that's something that Star Trek does really well.
Oh yeah.
We actually just had our Code 47, the 100th episode. So we did like a March
Congratulations.
Madness. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
We did a March Madness style bracket of the 5 best episodes from the main 8 shows, and we kind of put them head to head. And the one that actually we ranked top of all Star Trek was TNG's Measure of a Man. You know, how can you rate somebody's level of humanity and how it still hits home?
perfect. Yeah. Those are the kinds of big questions. That's what I love so much about Star Trek, those kinds of stories.
So when you first started out your acting career, was Star Trek something even on your radar? Or was it like a dream, or was it just like that's even untouchable?
You know what? It didn't. I was always fascinated with like practical effects, and like when I would like rent a movie from the video store and get my, VHS tape and plug it in, I'd always go to the end and watch the features and watch the actors getting the head casts, and oh, that looks so amazing. But I guess I never considered that it was something that, like how do you pursue that? And it must be so cool to do. And I never sort of factored in that it could be on my path. And when suddenly it was on my path, it was sort of like, oh my God, I've loved this stuff all my life. And now I get to do it. It was so exciting.
I bet.
So, like I think it's not one of those stories where I'm sitting at home and I watch an episode of Star Trek and I think, one day I'm going to be on that show. Like it wasn't like that. It was like, oh, I love this show. That's really great. And I never considered that it might happen. And then it did. And I mean, I'll tell you, in season 1, I played a series of Klingons. And in those early days of season 1, I would walk around set and I'd be like, I'm a Klingon right now. Like, what is happening that I'm walking around this gorgeous set in this unbelievable prosthetic? What? And my geek heart would just be just so excited. And I have to be like, remind myself, okay, you're here to work.
So yeah, getting I guess drilling into that a little bit, what was your first day like filming Discovery after being a fan for so long and not having it be something that was honed in on your radar to do?
Luckily, in because they were figuring so much out about the show in the early days, there were camera tests and there were makeup tests. So I got to get into the prosthetic a couple of times before we actually start shooting and see how it fit with the wardrobe and explore the set, because the sarcophagus ship set was gorgeous, but it was also, you had to know where the stairs were. Like there was a lot of tripping hazards. So we were allowed to spend a bunch of time like getting really. So by the time that we started shooting, I'd kind of, been able to adjust a little bit to the fact that I was in this unbelievable space. But those early days was just like every hallway you walk down and you look down and you see the set and you're like, what? How is it's, I just wanted to touch everything. I just wanted to.
I would have been doing the same thing.
Yeah. You're like, this is amazing. It was incredibly exciting and very, like, honestly, very difficult not to be overwhelmed by it because it was so huge and it was happening so fast. And I'm learning something completely new. I'm in a prosthetic for the first time and figuring out how that works and figuring how I intersect with the mask. And then I'm on a giant set and there's all of this huge amounts of people and there's all this secrecy. That was the other interesting thing too, is when we started, no one was talking about anything. And anytime that we went outside, we had to wear these giant cloaks with hoods to cover our heads. So we'd have to because they didn't want, if in case anyone was like taking a photograph, they didn't want anyone to know what they were doing. And so there was all of this intense secrecy. So it's like, I didn't tell anyone for like 8 months that I was on the show. It was a secret. I got really good at keeping secrets because of this job. I got really good at keeping secrets.
You're like a media spy.
Cool. Well, I've always been a good secret keeper for people, but I think when you're doing something so exciting like this, and then when, you're talking to friends and they're talking about cool stuff that they're doing and they're like, well, what have you been up to? And what you want to say is like, I'm working on Star Trek, but you can't. So you're just like, oh yeah, I'm writing and, and then you just start getting really, at first it's kind of, you're really impatient and you want to share it. But then once you hang on to it a while, then you're really comfortable with it. And then the secret keeping is no problem. And so I got very good at just not being worried about needing to share all the time. Like what was secret, and that was good.
All right, so you started with Klingons, and now
Yes.
at this point you have been, at least up through season 4, 4 different species on Discovery. Maybe it's not fair to ask, but do you have a favorite, and why is it Linus?
My favorite is absolutely Linus. He's the face that I've spent the most time in, but also, wait, what was that? I missed it. What just snuck in? What just snuck? Oh my Lord. Beautiful. Beautiful. There was something so beautiful about seeing when I walked in for my very first camera test and I saw the prosthetic on the table. There was something, I just gasped. He was so beautiful to me. And when I put it on and started working it, and I worked with a movement coach, and we started to figure it out, and it was like all of the other characters were great adventures, but Linus was like coming home. There's something about how he and I intersected and what was possible, and we just suited each other. Yeah, so that's why, like, Linus is. It was I love that character.
Oh, that's so sweet. So, what was your initial audition like for Discovery?
It was a very straightforward. Go in, read this, and I was auditioning for a Klingon from the Orak role, which is what I got. And then Linus was offered to me without an audition. It was just an email at the start of season 2. Like, they sent a letter to my agent and said, we'd like to offer the role of Linus the Saurian. And I was like, what? I didn't even know what a Saurian was, and I had to look it up, and I'm like, okay, cool. So, and then that just opened the door. But yeah, there's been a lot of different faces, but Linus is certainly just a beautiful home for me.
So what do you get to kind of bring or put into Linus versus what the writers kind of present to you on paper and say, this is what he is?
Because Linus was largely introduced initially as sort of a comedic character or a nice little, that was really fun for me to play with. And I think what I really brought to Linus was his kind of lovely awkwardness, which was a place to put all of my lovely awkwardness. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can bloom, and I can bloom in this character, and all of the, like, because I'm a bit awkward. And with Linus, he just wore that like a badge for me. And I think that's part of why he's so endearing, because he's awkward, but he's also absolutely capable and super confident. And I think it sort of taught me how to look at my own awkwardness, not as something something that's, what's the word I'm looking for? Not great, like something that is working against me. It's like, no, being awkward is great. And you still have your family, your found family, and you find your tribe, and you're loved and accepted for who you are. And there's a real power in that.
Yeah, and I think that's what's beautiful about Linus is, he was brought in as a comedic kind of character, but it was never that we were laughing at Linus. We were always laughing with Linus. And I think Absolutely. That's a huge distinction, is because, like, he was loved and embraced because of that awkward, and because he's, a little goofy. And I think that that's part of why, he has such a huge audience love too, is that we're all a little bit awkward in some way or another.
Absolutely.
100%. And for me to be able to put that into that, that character is yeah, and let it live. And look, like, what I loved so much about that transporter in season 3, when he kept transporting all around the ship.
This isn't the size.
It was so much fun to shoot. And also, I just loved that he kept trying. He kept trying to figure it out. And I loved,
Mhm.
because I don't, you know, every time there's an update for an app or something, like sometimes I'm like, what? And we all want our science fiction heroes to be like, we did the upgrade and we all get it. But I think it's really strong storytelling to be like, sometimes we don't all get it immediately. And that's okay. You just keep trying. And I loved that. I loved representing that. I loved being like, yeah, we don't all get it immediately, but that's not a bad thing. You just keep going.
As far as
And I think
superheroes,
he did
that's
get to the mess hall in the end.
well, he didn't starve to death, so we have to assume. I mean, if I was going to choose a superhero quality, I can definitely more relate to that versus like you look at, you know, not that it's bad, but you look at the superheroes that essentially have it all together and it's like, cool. I probably won't ever get there though.
Well, and I think it's a larger kind of it's a small moment of showing the larger theme of Discovery and of Star Trek in general, which is even when you're failing, you just keep moving forward because
Yeah.
eventually you will find that next discovery and you'll find that next, moment of success.
Right.
Yeah. Like a failure it can't be the thing that stops you. It has to be the key thing that motivates you to keep trying and keep going.
Absolutely. So I I like languages and I love sounds. So I have to ask, like, how do you come up with Linus's voice? Like, again, one of the fights the good fight is with the universal translator failing him more often than it should. So how are you able to, like? I love Linus's voice. Like, how are you able to bring that to life?
It's a really interesting process, actually. None of the dialogue that I say when we're shooting ever makes the episode because with the prosthetic and the teeth, it all sounds like I'm speaking with like 8 straws in my mouth. So I have to always go in and re-record the dialogue afterwards, in a studio session. And I work with an amazing team. They sort of Skype in from LA, and we have worked together over the seasons to sort of really pinpoint where his voice is and how he responds, and trying to capture what I did on the day. But then, it's like, oh, should we try adding a little bit of this? And in the beginning, they were playing with it digitally and like bringing it a bit down and putting a little bit of that translator quality, but I think it's kind of smoothed out. So it's been this really cool alchemy of figuring out where it sits, and it's a very collaborative process when I'm in recording, and it's been amazing. It's been amazing. But I certainly have I have the voice that I always go to for Linus, or like I always go to my Linus pose or my Linus reset, which I know is probably what my face is doing in the prosthetic, and that's where I start from, just whatever that energy is, and then we go from there. But the Linus voice, the performance voice that I use on set, came really out of the mask, and it's just how how it changed me.
Can we have a little, like, just a little blurb of Linus' voice?
Okay.
I told you we'd put you on the spot.
All right. Well, I wouldn't think that would be possible, but I wonder if we could go over there.
Yes. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, back at you, Kae.
All right. So out of all of the roles to date that you have been doing under prosthetics, what has that been like? Because this has really been like you said, your first time doing prosthetics was with Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. It's been an amazing education. It's been an amazing. So I'm coming to terms with understanding this performance style and working in the prosthetic, and I'm also working alongside Doug Jones, the finest of the finest in the world. And he's so incredibly generous and helpful and supportive. And Doug and I get along like a house on fire. Like, we just adore each other. And he's been amazingly supportive, and we're there for each other on set. And so I really look at this experience and all the different faces is I just learned something new every time. With every new face, there was a new lesson, there was a new insight, there was a deepening and and emboldening. And so it's been this incredible journey of yeah, you're going to go through this really intense course of study and try all of these faces, and you're going to learn something about the character and the mask and the articulation, and it's 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 been amazing. And I'm sort of, when I contemplate what's next, I I don't want to stop playing in prosthetics just yet. I'm really in love with it, and my agent is like, it's time to get back to your face. And I'm like, I don't know. I really like. It's a really cool job, and it's been an amazing adventure, and working with Doug has been a dream.
So, maybe this will be kind of a simple answer then, because I know you can't get any spoilers for season 5, obviously. But if it hasn't happened yet, would you ever be open to playing human David in another Star Trek, like maybe Strange New Worlds?
I will go wherever the adventure goes. I will go.
You will boldly go.
I will boldly go. I will 100% boldly go. I have this cool new skill set that I didn't know I had, and so now I've been able to really focus on it, and I'd like to keep using it. But whatever happens, like whatever direction, as a result of this amazing experience, whatever happens next, I mean, that's part of life, right? It's like, where's the next adventure? So we'll see. You're gonna really like season 5. It's really
That's what we
great.
keep hearing. It's torture.
When they announced they were pushing it to the airing to the start of next year, I was like, oh no, because I'm so eager to see it. It's a really good season.
So this is actually not scripted, but what was your reaction when you got the call that season 5 was going to be it, since it was kind of, you guys didn't go into it knowing that?
No. You know what? It was instantly very heartbreaking. It was really tough because the conversation had been the last time, because we had finished shooting in November. And so it was like, see you next, whenever we were going to start, like, see you next summer. And the conversation was, yeah, there's going to be, like, no question, another season. And when the call came in, it was so unexpected and instantly just like, what? Because this experience has touched every area of my life. I have a work family that we went through a pandemic together, like these incredible people that I have been seeing, and forged relationships over 5 years, like Doug, and these people, we all gather and we do this thing, and we have so much fun, and it's this incredibly happy set. And then suddenly it's just not going to happen anymore. And we didn't really have that, like, knowing going in that it was going to be the end. So it threw me for a loop. I mean, quite honestly, I was very sad. And I guess, now I'm sort of the mind of, like, I know that Linus is a small piece of this adventure, but I think the reason I was so saddened by the end of it is because it has been a giant adventure for me as an artist and as a person, like engaging with people at Star Trek Vegas a couple of years ago, and meeting that community, and like my show family, who, I love them, and the amazing crew and the artists that I get to work with on the prosthetics trailer. Like, it's been a huge adventure, and so it was very sad. And it's going to make watching season 5 incredibly special.
I would imagine there's going to be a lot of emotions in that.
But they've crafted, I don't know what you want to call it. They've crafted a denouement, which is a really beautiful sign off for the show.
More tease.
I'm about to cry.
I know.
I haven't even watched it yet.
We get that. We get knowing that plus the anticipation and the suspense of having to wait.
Yeah, it's, you know what, when that season airs, it's going to be really it's an exciting season. It will be a deeply emotional season to watch because we know this is the final season for that show. And but I'm so excited for everyone to see it.
I am excited to see
It's
it.
gonna
Well,
be
we're
good.
very excited to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll get back a little bit on course again. Speaking of Doug and kind of like the found family that you guys have, I've heard from him that everybody that plays a Kelpian, he kind of gives a crash course to, as far as like, this is their mannerisms, this is how to handle the makeup and the boots. Did you get to go through that class?
Well, yes. I got to.
This is going to be good.
This is going to be good. Yeah, because I played a Kelpian in season 2 was my first one. So when I played the Kelpian villager, I got to go to the session with Doug where we talked a lot about the walk and the move and the pose, and I got to bring the boots home and stomp around my apartment. Apologies to my downstairs neighbors. Been like, what's happening up there? It's like a fashion show. Clomp, clomp, clomp. But it's like, yeah, you know, one of the things I love so much about Doug is that he's incredibly professional and also incredibly generous, and he cares deeply. So he met with the actors who were playing Kelpians to share what his sort of like truth of what the character was, and so there would be consistency in Kelpians across. It sort of speaks to his level of professionalism and care for the work, as well as just being a lovely person. So they were, you know, it's always a delight to spend any time with Doug.
I have to agree.
Yeah, like, you know, you see Doug in interviews, and I'm sure everyone's like, wow, I bet it's really fun to work with him. And yeah, 100%. What you think is 100% how much fun it is. Yeah, he's amazing.
So speaking of, I actually have a message to give to you from him. So I told him I was going to be interviewing.
Now you're going to make me cry.
I'm just the messenger. But
okay, what's the message?
So I wrote it down so I could do it verbatim. And he said, when you see my Davy, give him all my love and all the huggles for precious Davy. When you meet him, you'll find out he is the most gorgeous, sweetest, humble, articulate, intelligent, and poetic human being there is in the world. Love from Dougie.
What a sweet man. Yeah.
Like I say, we had him. He was one of our first interviews for the personnel files, and he was just an absolute delight to talk to. So I can understand the bond that you have formed with him, and how easy it would be, and how just that generosity would seep through for him kind of taking and guiding you. And I can't imagine a better mentor for something like this than him.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the thing you learn about working in a prosthetic on very quickly is that you're kind of, I mean, it's going to sound dramatic, but you're kind of cut off. No one is engaging with you with, like, people are forming a relationship with the face you're wearing. And so Doug and I, when we're on set together, we're sort of largely the only two people, like, especially on the bridge, we're the only two people who are in that. And it's glued on, and it's the whole day. And so in between takes, you know, people are chatting and on their cell phones, and Doug and I will normally just sit together. And sometimes we'll just hold hands, or like put a supportive hand on each other's knee, and just, or simply just sit quietly side by side and just hold space for each other, because we're in a slightly different, we're the only two people who knows exactly, not exactly, but has an idea of what the other person is going through in terms of like being in that head. Because it's not, I mean, that was the other cool part about this journey, is I think it's easy to romanticize prosthetic work, and it's like, it's so cool, and all of the artistry is amazing. It's like, it's all of the things you think it would be. There's also a giant psychological piece of needing to remain calm and understanding that the job is that you're going to be uncomfortable. And your job then is to get on the other side of your discomfort and find your freedom, like transcend the challenge and find the freedom. And so like when you're on set with someone who's in a very similar situation, like not only do Doug and I get along extremely well as human beings, but just like as artists holding space for each other in that way is also very powerful, and it sort of strengthened our bond for sure.
Absolutely. So with all the prosthetic work, what would you say has been like the biggest issue? Because I would imagine like the Kelpian boots on a beach could not have been fun. I wear Kelpian boots on
Not my
concrete, and that
favorite.
is bad enough.
The boots on the beach was a real interesting challenge. I think the most difficult prosthetic I've had to wear were the Klingon prosthetics because they were so big. I had to wear a bowl on the back of my head to support the back of the Klingon head. So there was a lot of weight, and it was very detailed, and it was, blended in around the eyes. So it was sort of a trial by fire, the Klingon experience, but it also, I was like, if I can endure this, I've got this.
Absolutely.
If I can get through this, I can do this. And, and not every day is not every day is you have, some days you're just sort of quietly suffering because for what it's just like, it's, and then that's your job, just to manage your discomfort as best you can. There's how can I say this? I don't know what I can say. I found a place on the bridge where if I was having a hard time, because there was sometimes part of the way that the prosthetic behaves is it starts to act like an eardrum because it covers my ears, and I've got a bald cap also underneath. And so if there's a lot of conversation happening, it just starts to be like a wall of noise, and it can be very like taxing. And so I found this spot on the bridge, this like perfect little nook for my hand. And if I felt that I was ever like I need support or I need help, I would always go over and hold the ship. I felt like the ship was holding my hand.
Aww.
And I was like getting strength from the ship. And I was like, okay, we're going to be fine. Discovery has got me. You just find these soothing mechanisms. And so that this season, that was a beautiful discovery of finding that little handhold.
Grounding. I love it.
Next, when the season airs, I'll post a picture of the handhold because I have a picture of it. So,
oh yes, I want to see it for sure.
Okay.
Well, okay. So if you had a chance to escape the prosthetics and trade a role with another actor on Disco, what character would you love to play and why?
That's such a good question. Does the person I switch with, do they have to go into the prosthetic?
Okay, this can't be like a hate draft kind of thing where you just want to stick someone in prosthetics to make them suffer.
Who would I want to play? Who would I want to switch with? Ooh. It's such a good, but it's a hard question because everyone is so good at their job, and I'm instantly like, I couldn't do that as good as they could. I couldn't do that as good as them.
Okay. So let's remove that element. Just as far as the character wise, the concept of the character, you're walking in and no one else has played them before.
Okay.
Just who would you love to play?
A really horrible, mean villain.
Fair.
I'd like to play a big bad.
Yes. Okay, I can absolutely see that. 100%.
Someone, I'm not going to, I think that would be really a fascinating process. And, of course, I'm already thinking, I'm like, you said you're out of the prosthetic. And I was like, oh, I'm back in the prosthetic and now I'm a monster. Okay, so if I was going to be a human, I would say I would be like, I don't know. I'd have to find something really different. Oh, you've stumped me. You've totally stumped me with this question. It's such a good question.
Well, you'll have to think about it, and then maybe you can tweet about it later. With your
yes,
answer.
okay. Yes, I'll be, when this
So,
goes up, I'll be like, I have my answer. I'm thinking about it. Because right now, all I'm
yes.
thinking is like human equivalent of Linus. And I'm like, no, you've got to like do something else. Do
Out of
something
your
Yeah,
comfort
no.
different.
zone.
Pick a character that you would like to play, that you
Okay.
would swap with. So from the cast.
Okay.
So, but while you're
I'm
thinking
gonna,
about that,
I'm gonna, this is gonna require some deep thought.
we'll bookmark that one. So
And
That's
I mean,
that's a great
we
question.
didn't mean to break you.
yes, we did warn you that we listen to other interviews and stuff to make sure we're asking questions that you haven't been asked before.
And-
So we did
And
warn you.
you did warn me, and you did a job, and that is a great question.
And we're just getting started.
Okay, let's go.
All right.
Hopefully, I'll do
So
better with
what
the
are
next
some of-
one.
You've done great so
Yeah.
far. So
Okay, great.
just one little.
Yeah,
What are some of the things? All right. So, what are some of the things you've been able to learn or take away from each of the characters you've played on Discovery?
Oh wow! Well, the Klingons taught me how to be in a prosthetic. Being a Klingon taught me survival. It was a trial by fire. So that was what the Klingons
Very
taught me.
Klingon.
Yes.
Yeah, very Klingon. Linus has taught me so much. We've talked a little bit about it, like the embracing my awkwardness and the finding your own place and being loved and part of a team. Linus has been good for that. Playing Cosmo Trait, that was my first kind of bad guy, and that was really cool to be a thug. And I got to do my first on-screen like fighting with David Ajala, a book, and I was so nervous. I was so nervous because I'm not a hit person. Like so we had a fight rehearsal, and the choreographer was really great, and with the prosthetic, I just So and it was a great victory. So Cosmo taught me how to. It was my first like thuggy like role, so that was cool. Young Sukal, the scream, which isn't my scream, but I had to scream all day when we shot that scene. I was to sort of keep screaming like that over and over. I was going into some pretty interesting places and just sort of revisiting old stuff. And so that was like a really kind of a freeing exercise of playing that scene. I'm forgetting a couple, aren't I? There's
There was like the Kelpian villager.
the Kelpian villager, just channeling Doug's elegance and mastering those boots on sand. Like I'll take that victory. 110%. I'll take
Every
that
day.
victory.
I bet you have a strut at this point.
Oh yeah,
after
no,
working the boots.
yeah, no. The strut is real. The strut is 100% real.
What is it? You don't strut, you slay.
Now I just get this
Yes.
vision of we need like a post season 5 like Kelpian fashion show. Like do a runway.
Oh my god, yes.
You know what I would love to see is a Discovery fashion show. There were so many incredible outfits
Yes.
So many.
that we didn't really get to see clearly enough. And like there were sets that I was on, and I'd look around and I just felt like I'm in Fashion Week in outer space. I would love to see, but I think this is true for so much of Trek. Like there's like the artists who are creating these designs and being so incredibly creative. Like I would love to see a fashion show of like iconic Trek fashion, because there's so much compelling, glorious art that has been a part of the show from a costume perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
I see a future Vegas panel in somebody's future. Not
Okay.
mine. Not mine.
I don't know, maybe Kelpian drag show?
Yeah, I'm down for it.
We'll sign you up.
All right. What would you like Linus to be remembered for in Trek canon?
Oh my God, you're so good. That's a great question. I don't think that's something that I can decide. I think um, as an artist, I can go in and do my work and let the audience decide what it is that they want to take away. I feel like, like I put my heart into that character and let him live, and we lived together, and the fact that people responded at all to him was incredibly gratifying to me. The fact that people identified or felt like a kinship with him, that is already more than enough. You know
My my
that they
mom has a
were,
tattoo
like
of him. Instantly her favorite. Just gonna say.
as long, so it's like I leave it to the audience to take away and remember him in the way that feels right for them. But I certainly, that he and I are in a lifelong, uh, I don't know what you call it, just I'll always be a little bit Linus now.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, what has it been like to be a part of the Star Trek family, both as the Discovery family, but also the larger Star Trek family?
It's been really profound. um, I remember I was in Vegas 2 years ago, and it was in the middle of the pandemic, I guess. Yes, and everything was feeling very fractured. And I remember sitting at the table, and it was my first time at the convention, and people kept coming over and saying, "Welcome to the family." And at a time when everything felt so fractured, and I was so nervous about being, there, I was like, it sounded like this hugely overwhelming experience, and everyone was so generous and welcoming. It was amazing, and it sort of that was one of the first big moments where I was like, oh, I'm a part of this thing, that because I go in and I do my job and I come home and I forget that millions of people are going to watch it, because I can't think about that, right? Like I'm just going and I'm doing my job, and then I'm going to come home. And it's been dawning on me in these last few seasons, like once I got over the thrill of, I can't believe I'm a Klingon and I'm working on this show, that it's like that. It's okay. I'm going to jump to tracks a little. There's last summer, a friend and I, he has a home theater set up in his basement, and so we decided to start watching all of the feature films through, from the motion picture right through. And oh gosh, is it Generations, where Kirk has that speech about the future crews? Like, he basically gives this speech about how we've done it to here, and that we put our faith and support behind future crews for. And then I sat on the couch and I looked over at my friend and I said, "Oh my God, I'm one of those I'm on one of those crews." Like it just dawned on me. So I think it's such a big experience, and it's such an impactful experience, that it's dawning on me in little bits and pieces. And that's probably healthiest for me, because to
Hmm.
take it all in, I wouldn't be able to appreciate it. But it's, again, it's been this life-changing experience.
So, as a fan from conventions, I get so much out of them, especially Star Trek Las Vegas. What do you pull out of conventions?
What do I pull out of them?
Yeah, like what do you get from them?
I've had so many great conversations with people about the character that have provided like some insight or something I hadn't thought about, or talked to people about art that they were making. It's like that human connection. It's like, um, for that moment we get to sit together and share what we love, or I really like this thing, and this is great, and what are you work it's just it's those little human connections. It's like being part of a like-minded family. And I also, the crazy beautiful cosplay, all of the costumes, like I just sit and I watch it all go by, and I'm like, that's genius, that's genius, that's genius, that's beautiful. Like it's all of the inventiveness and the creativity I find so inspiring, that the fan base is so dedicated. It's it's quite humbling, and it's beautiful. I just love the enthusiasm. So I guess I I guess in a nutshell, I just get a whole lot of love, a whole lot of love, like people loving Star Trek and being passionate about it, and loving on Linus, and I get to love back, and it's all love.
Do you have any super like memorable or like crazy goofy experiences from a fan at a convention?
Um, I I've only been to one convention so far, and I had a someone had come up, and we were talking about the character, and when I found out that Linus was a Saurian, and what the Saurian species was about, I started watching a bunch of lizard reference footage because I just wanted to see how they behaved, and see if I could pull anything. And so I was talking about this with someone, and something that I don't think we're ever going to see it. But when Linus is standing, he stands with his feet like this. Because I saw this great lizard where if it got startled, it reared up on its hind legs and ran forward on his feet like this. And
Yes,
I always
I have
thought,
seen those. Yes.
yeah. So I thought I do, and so we had this conversation, and this gentleman's partner was um, like, I don't think she was I can't remember the word, like someone who studies reptilians, but she was incredibly reptilian savvy. And she said, oh, and I've forgotten the word, but it's a monitor lizard. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And so we had this great connection of this, like her informing this thing I had seen. And then we talked a lot about it. And then I was able to like go back and be like, oh, and this can be a part. So, that was very striking to me that we were able, like, who is, how unexpected that was.
Yeah, that's incredible that you're able to pull like something that you were just like, oh, I'm just gonna watch some reference stuff, and then it ends up
Yeah.
being like a really key moment that you have with a fan is
Yeah.
absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and then they're able
So
to like embolden it, and talk and tell me more about it because I just watched the video and I liked the thing, and she was explaining what it was about. I was like, it was, man, it was the alchemy of, like, yeah.
well, along the same lines as far as like crazy or goofy, what is your most embarrassing moment on Star Trek Discovery, besides Missy and her mom or and their mom?
We each have our own favorite. One of them's like a blooper, and the other one's like a behind the scenes. But I'd like to hear yours.
Well, I mean, I think the most embarrassing would be when I was doing the sneeze and my teeth flew out of my mouth,
Yep,
Yes.
that has to be one.
which that whole night was really hilarious, and I was so stressed out, and I was doing the sneeze, and it was my first time on set as Linus, and then I did it and my teeth rocketed out. And if you
I
watch
didn't know
if
that was your first time
what,
as
yeah, that was my
Linus on
first day
set.
on set. Oh yeah, I was so horrified. And like, if you see, like, I keep going with the scene, like, I'm just like, I'm sure I'm just gonna, I don't know what to do, so I'm just gonna go ahead. And Saniqua looks over at me like, what?
That's well, like, when I saw the blooper, I didn't exactly understand what happened until Saniqua starts laughing. She's like, he just lost his teeth.
I sneezed my teeth out of my mouth, and they hit the other actor, and then they dropped to the floor and they broke. And then I
Oh,
was horrified. I'm like, I just broke a very expensive appliance, right? But then the prosthetics team were so great. They rushed in. They had another set of teeth. They took the broken one. They fixed it. They gave me They were like, it's all fine. We're all good. No worries. Like, I was taken such good care of. And that was just par for the course for Discovery. Like, we were just always taken very good care of. Like, it was an incredible team. When a lot of people ask, what's it like to see with if you're on set, and it's often like dark. Well, I mean, it's like looking through dark purple sunglasses. But if the light changes suddenly, because my pupils are so dilated, because they're like open to try and look through. So if there's a sudden change in light, it takes a second. But I never worried about not seeing, because if I ever hesitated or was unsure, a hand just came out of nowhere, like from the crew, or a hand on my back saying, "This way, David." Like it's I can't understate how much looking out for there was, and how the crew was there, and so yes, the teeth coming out, absolutely. I think my most embarrassing on camera moment. Off camera moment, um I don't know. I'm such a goof off camera. Like,
I think we can relate to that.
Again, I believe the phrase "lovably awkward" has been thrown around quite a bit to
Yes,
describe
yeah.
us. So I
Yeah,
imagine there's a lot of antics.
there's antics. There's antics, but yeah, on camera that would be the most. That would be the one. The teeth.
From like the behind the scenes or like the off camera, there was the video a couple seasons ago of you trying to eat. It was like a veggie straw or something.
Yes.
Yes. When I had my prosthetics on, one of my friends tried to force feed me a veggie straw when I told them I couldn't eat. So I related a lot to that video, and it's the fact that you were victorious, like it made the video.
Well, I mean, there's that video. That was like 3:30 in the morning. It was an incredibly humid, hot night. We were shooting at the AR wall. It was when we were on the planet of the 10 seas, and so that was all at the AR wall. So had been this long day. It was really hot, and again, just like more taking care. Patrick had these veggie straws, and he was, and then we thought it would be fun to see if I could do it, and it just, yeah, I was so proud. I was so exhausted.
At 3:30 in the morning, I would barely be able to eat a veggie straw without all the prosthetics. So kudos to you.
Right.
Oh, thank you. It's the managing the eating thing is weird. I had a really great system I this season where I had like my midday thing would be a really cool, like I'd make a kale smoothie with like apple and ginger and lemon.
Ooh.
Like really nutrient dense. So I'd go to my trailer at lunch and I'd drink it, and then I'd sleep, and then I'd go back to set. And at the end of the day, I just fell in love with egg salad sandwiches this year, because I've always loved them. And so there was one afternoon where everyone was getting sandwiches, and you're sitting there in your prosthetic, and everyone's like, "I'd love a sandwich," and oh. And then I said, "Hey, could they make a sandwich and just put it in my trailer for me for end of day?" And of course. So then this started this habit of like, I'd have my kale smoothie at lunch, and then they would put 4 egg salad sandwiches in my trailer. And so when I got back from taking my prosthetics off, no matter what time of day it was, there were always 4 egg salad sandwiches in my trailer. They have never tasted better.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so good.
That's one thing I think some people miss out too, is they understand the process of getting the prosthetics on, but it's also can be a process to get them back off at the end of the day too. You don't just zip them off and you're done.
You don't just zip them off and you're done. And depending on the nice thing about the Linus prosthetic is because I'm wearing like a goggle piece under the faceplate, so it's not all tamped onto my skin. It's like the goggles are stuck in places, but the actual face isn't. So it's easy. It comes off easier, especially if I've been sweating a ton, which I tend to do if the day is long. And then we've had days where they cut it, and it just like in 10 minutes is just whoosh, it slides off. And some days it takes 25. It just depends on all the factors. But yeah, it's a process to get it off. But again, like, they take such good care of us. The prosthetic artists are amazing. There's hot towels at the end of the day. It's, we look quite a fright when we come out of the mask.
Okay. So as much as we love Star Trek, we like to do some other aspects of your life and career too. So if we switch gears a little bit, in general, what part of acting do you find to be the most challenging?
Oh, that's a great question. What do I find to be the most challenging? I think it's the finding your path to the character. Like it's always, you always have to take a different path and you never know quite how you're going to get there. And sometimes it can be trickier than others. Like the path to Linus happened super unexpectedly and in a super delightful way. It was the teeth night. It was the night of the teeth. Because what had happened was I was leading up to that, I had started to really stress because I had started to think, oh yeah, no, I'm going to play this Saurian and it's going to be the first Saurian on a TV series and it's going to be canon. And I have to be very responsible as an artist and as a fan to make sure that this feels right. And I had watched all this lizard stuff and worked with the movement coach. And so I had this amazing foundation, but I was on set and I was very stressed. And we had that moment in the elevator and suddenly there was all of this amazing laughter and, you know, Doug put his hand on my shoulder and I was able to relax. And in that moment, I honestly just heard a voice at the back of my head say, oh, I know what this is. I've got this. And it was like Linus. And it just, because of all the work I had done, and then I always go to that place. So it's, you know, sometimes you have to work harder to get there, but sometimes it pops in. But I find that to be tricky, the finding the character.
And as an actor that's done both like film, screen work, and stage work, do you have a preference for one over the other?
They're such different muscles. Like they require very different things. And so it's like the nice thing about a stage performance is you're largely in control of it and it's organic and it's breathing and it's, you know, the energy of the room. And on film or TV, you have your moment, you do your thing, and then 100 other people are going to look at it a different way or move the camera or edit it. So you have to sort of like immediately release the performance and just sort of be like, you're going to do your job and then release it because you don't get the final say. And that can be sometimes hard. Like, oh, why didn't they shoot it? But that's, you know, like you do your job, other people are doing theirs. And everyone on that show does an amazing job. So, you know, I think the money's much better for film and TV. I'll say that.
We've heard that from others.
Yes. So as, you know, you're talking about all of these different, you know, everyone has a different job and different roles. You have done several of those roles because you're not only an actor, but you're also a writer and producer. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. Well, I've always written, and a lot of what has driven my writing is giving myself things to do. So I did a web series up here with a broadcaster called The Writer's Block, which was like a short digital series I shot with my friends and was a producer on that. And that was very cool. I got to learn a lot about producing and how hard it can be. And did I have a producer mindset? But I feel like, you know, just like film acting and theater acting is different, also like being a writer is a different muscle altogether. And so in between Star Trek seasons, I always write. I always go back to like what I'm doing as an artist and what I'm compelled to work on. And so I recently have been working on a new solo show. And so I just performed that. I sort of go where the muses tell me. And those are my marching orders. I you know, like I've learned that, you know, when you're prompted, take the prompt and go on the adventure.
Yeah. So, is there a dream role that these muses have told you for either stage or screen? Like, is there something that you just would really absolutely love to take?
Well, I mean, I have written several screenplays and TV series. So, I mean, I would love for one of those projects to go because I always write a me role. There's always a me role in those projects. So, you know, one of those things. I am certainly, as I mentioned earlier, not against playing a massive, big bad, you know, a whole monstrous monster. That would be very cool. I'm in this really interesting place of having, wrapped up on the discovery piece in a place of real ease and flow and openness, and I almost feel like I want to trust the Linus of it all and let this experience open the door to the next piece. And then, but also
I
as an
love
artist,
that.
keep doing my writing and keep working on my own stuff, because that's equally as important.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is there anything that is a deal breaker for roles? So, like you've talked about being like you really want to play a villain or something, but is there
Mhm.
anything that when you read it on paper, you're just like, no, absolutely not. I'm going to pass on this.
Ooh, at this point, no, because if there was a character that was I didn't respond to, I'd have to really question why. Like, what is it stirring up in me? And then what do I not have my eye on? And then is it just fear that I don't think I can do this? Because then that needs addressing. Or is there an issue that I need to solve to make this clearer? I mean, not there are roles that just aren't for you. I get that. But initially, if I had a real visceral response to an offer, I'd have to take a real look as to why and what was driving it in me. Because I'm the one reacting, so I have to determine why that is.
It's very introspective. I like it.
Yeah.
I have my moments.
You haven't learned this about me yet, but I'm a mental health counselor, so that's all these little like psychological bits just tickle my fancy.
Oh,
So.
I love that. I love that.
So of all the roles that you have done so far, are there any that are
Mm-hmm.
like this one really resonates? This is what like close to what David actually is, or some that's like this is 100% not.
Well, my character on the writer's block, which was the digital series I mentioned, I played a version of myself that was, kind of a very, uh, there was a lot of hyperbole. Like I played kind of a bratty, self-absorbed version of myself, which was super fun to do, petulant, Um, in a weird way, I think playing Linus allowed me to be myself in a way on screen that I hadn't been able to be yet for whatever reason. I don't know. There's something that happened in that intersection that was really special and powerful.
So what are some of the other roles that you've done? Like you've mentioned the writer's block and obviously Star Trek. What are some other roles that people could maybe seek out to see you in?
Oh, well, I did a Queer as Folk. That was my first TV thing back in the day. I've done lots of like little, like a Designated Survivor, a spin on that, and then some Canadian appearances. Nothing, I don't know what goes where. I don't know what shows you're familiar with. I know Designated Survivor, you must be, because that's an American show.
Hmm.
And Queer as Folk was
Yes.
one that was always close to my heart growing up. So,
Well, I played, do you remember
oh yeah.
uh, yeah, okay, yeah, that was me. We did that was me. That was also a crazy experience and super fun.
So, if acting hadn't panned out, what career would you see yourself in?
Something artistic for sure. I like if I mean just always creating, being a creator, um, representing, finding a way to represent what I don't see being represented, starting conversations. Um, uh, I've always been an extremely creative person. I have a very immediate sort of point of access with sort of the creative field, and it's sort of like a long time companion for me. So if it's not acting, it's going to be writing, or it's going to be something creative. It's going to be something that is creative driven.
I think that speaks to Kat.
That is fantastic.
That has to speak to you.
I say, as a fellow creative and artist, I would definitely agree with that. Where it just feels like
Yeah.
sometimes it's almost compulsive.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to, like when an idea comes in the room, I like I always want to sit it down and say, okay, so why have you come? Like, what's the conversation? Why are you
Mm-hmm.
here? And then we dance a bit and see how we get along. And then I've written things that I never would have thought I would have written, but so glad I did because I just started that conversation. And I think, I really feel like that's our responsibility as artists to go to uncertain places, especially right now, um, to go to like uncertain and brave new places and come back from that story and share what we learned with everyone and be like, and shine a way forward now more than ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of finding, brave new spaces, Missy and I are very excited to have an all LGBTQ plus interview.
Oh,
So
hey,
we
we did it.
did it, yes.
Skip
Yes. But just for a quick timeline, if you don't mind, at
Mhm.
what age did you know that you were LGBTQ plus, and what age did you come out?
I had my very first inkling in grade 4. I had just transferred schools. I had moved from a city school to a rural school because we moved out of the city. And my mom had dropped me off at the school, and I was taken to the principal's office. And then the teacher from my new class came to get me and was taking me back to the class. And we walked into the room, and of course, in her absence, chaos had the kids were running everywhere. And I remember there was a boy in tight blue pants, and he was kind of hopping between desks. And I remember I looked at his bum, and it was so cute. And I thought to myself, oh, I want to get to know him. Uh, but not in like a sexy way, but just in like that was an appealing quality,
Right.
Right.
like a nice smile, right? And looking
Yeah.
back, I was like, that was the first thing. I had a I had a very challenging time. I grew up in a small town. Um, so I had a very challenging time coming out, and so I was kind of in my early 20s. I was of the mind that this was no longer a phase, that this was the deal, and I was going to do the responsible thing and not tell anyone and die alone. That was kind of like where I was, and
Oh.
within a couple of years that and so I got to like just before my mid 20s, and I realized that that was going to be impossible. And I had met some beautiful friends who were queer and who gave me space to sort of start working my way out of the closet. And then I started coming out to my friends, and then once I was out, I was out. I wasn't going to go back in the closet, personally or professionally. I wasn't interested in concealing it. And I remember because I started in comedy and improv, and I remember doing an improv scene with one of the other people in my class, and it evolved into this really touching and thoughtful scene between a cab driver and the passenger, who I played the passenger, and we just had and who was queer in the scene. And this is, you know, how many years ago? Like 25 years ago. So this is like, there's not a lot of healthy representation happening, especially in comedy. And so
Mm-hmm.
the scene played out, and I came off the stage, and the teacher said that was really beautiful, and you should consider doing more of that. And that was sort of like, yeah, I'm not going to hide this on stage, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. And so yeah, there was no going back after that.
Yeah. So, what has your experience in the entertainment industry been in terms of being out, and how has that changed, or has it changed at all throughout your career?
Well, initially I was pegged as the gay guy. And so for every audition, I would only be seen for gay roles, and then they would cast a straight person. That was kind of how it went um,
Lovely.
at the time, which and there was always a very awkward moment in the auditions, and there's lots of you know the, there's been lots of conversation around this where you'd walk in and you'd do the thing, and they'd say, oh, could you be, I don't know, more animated, or oh, could you be less animated, like it's just like, could you be more gay or less gay? And I was always interested in just being myself.
Mm-hmm.
So So it was really challenging, and I think there were a lot of opportunities that didn't happen because I was perceived as a bit of a wild card and also openly gay. But I don't regret it, and I don't begrudge it. It was, you know, I remember doing an improv show, and we were doing a musical number, and they were improvising. It was improvising a musical, and so they were singing a song about dating, and then it was very straight. And so I went out and I said, and that's fine, but if a boy wants to sleep with the boy, that's okay too, and sort of take it a queer turn. And there was an explosion in the audience. And what I didn't know at the time was that there was a group of queer teens from another province who had come in to see this, and they'd never seen anything like this before. And it's like, yeah, that's the power of representing,
Yes.
of being seen. So I like to think that it's come a long way. That things are much better now. I mean, I'm not seen for the same roles anymore, just because I'm over 50 now, and so now they see me as, old man, which is another problem with the industry.
Yes.
But I think we're seeing healthier representation now, and more inclusive representation now. And it's in this very surreal time that we're finding ourselves. It's really important that we have some really normal, healthy representation of our community and ourselves and our lives in our storytelling, because queer teens are still killing themselves.
Yes.
So, that was a problem when I was a teenager, and it's a problem now. So,
Yeah,
so there's still more work to do.
absolutely. As far as like being with something profound for me with Star Trek was when they brought the character of Adira on, or Blue, and I still remember the interaction where she's kind of like they're trying to worm their way into the crew without saying anything, and you know Stamets is like, oh well, what are you doing here? I don't think she's supposed to be here. And without missing a beat, Adir just goes, no, like, I'm non-binary. And Stamets is just like, oh, okay, cool. Like, what are you doing on my ship? Like, and
yeah, and then Stamets is Stamets, right?
exactly. Like,
yes.
but just to be like with all of the actors and the characters, just having this vast diversity in the LGBTQ world has been huge for me as somebody that didn't come out until like their mid 30s. So what has it been like to be able to be a part of that, to be like, it's Star Trek. Everybody knows Star Trek, and now it's just so open and out there. What has that been like?
I love that it's open and out there, and I'll tell you, I was quite bullied in high school, and so one of my least favorite times of day was lunch, because I had to negotiate the cafeteria and find an end of a table to sit at where I wouldn't be hassled or I wouldn't be jeered at. I just had to be, just like find a safe space, eat my lunch, and get out of there. So I've always kind of hated and dreaded group eating situations like caf setups, because I never had a table. And in season 3, when did Blue come on the show? Season 3, yes.
Before they jumped to the
season.
No, season
when did
2.
They...
Season 2, before they jumped to the future, because season 3 we got they were actually part of the crew.
So Blue, they came on. Anyway, so it was that season. And I went into the lunchroom, and I was going to get some lunch too. This is before I figured out the egg salad sandwich trick. And so I was going to get a little bit of food to put in my fridge for later. And because at lunch, I've still got my prosthetic on, so I'm just walking around with the eyes out. And I walked into sort of the lunchroom, and everyone's at the table. And I see a table with Anthony and Wilson and Blue and Ian. And my heart skips a beat. And I think, I have a table. I finally have a table. And it was so thrilling. And I was devastated because I was like, I also have to sleep. I have to go to my trailer and sleep. I'm so tired. And I wanted to sit at the table and be with my friends and know that I had a place at that table. And it was so powerful. And I was so excited. And it was so simple. It was just, that was my table. But I had to, I literally, I just had to go. I couldn't. I also don't like sitting in the lunchroom in the prosthetic, because if I wanted to nibble on something, it turns into this weird thing of going down, and then it just is awkward. So it's not fun. And it's, it's taxing to talk to people in the prosthetic, because you're working through all of the makeup. So it's like, but I left that room elated knowing that I had my table. And so that's a difference that it made to me, just as a gay actor, of walking in and knowing that I finally had a table. So knowing that those characters live up on the screen, and that teens and young people, or people of any age, can look at them and see them and feel represented and feel like they're not alone. It's incredible, and it will save lives.
It will, hopefully.
Yes.
If anything can, Star Trek can.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I'm really proud of what the show has done, and I love that those characters exist, and I love that they're there, and I love that I had a table.
I'm glad you have a table too. You have a table and a tribe.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, I'll shoot that back to you, Kae, because my next question was already talked about. Perfect.
Okay. So, do you feel like some of those early childhood experiences, both the bad and the good, help make you into the person that you are today?
Yes. Yeah. My high school experience was probably the darkest time of my life, and I've seen a lot of bad things, but it was pretty horrible not to be liked and picked on, and be such an outcast. And I muscled through it, and it made me a very strong person. And it made it, it was damaging in some ways and strengthening in others. And so I think as an adult, it's sort of my continued job to check in on that guy and make sure that little kid is okay, and that I'm okay. And I do tend to be a bit of a loner, which is one of the other great gifts of Discovery, is I do tend to be a bit of a loner, because I feel like I don't belong a lot of the time. And the cast would get together for these game nights that like everyone talks about, the games nights. And I always was, initially was like, oh, nobody wants me there or whatever. And this cast just kept inviting me, we're getting together, please come. It'd be great to see you. And I was like, they don't want to see me. They don't know. And I walked in for my first night, and everyone was so excited, and they were just patient enough and loved me enough to just wait for me to join. And then they embraced me, and it's pretty amazing.
Every story gets better and better.
This is why Discovery is my favorite.
Well, it's, like that collection of people, we got along absurdly well. And I think it's talked about because it's just not always that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was absurdly, and not that everyone was besties, but that everyone got along, and there were little pockets of whatever, but it was never competitive and never cliquey. It was always inclusive, but then certain people were closer because of proximity or whatever. But it was like, no one was a monster. It's amazing. And I think knowing that community is not going to be together in that same way is very heartbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that it comes forward on screen too, because, Discovery it's about exploration, of space and in time, but also just about the human experience, or I guess, the conscious experience. And I don't know if it would have come across as well if the cast wasn't as respectful and open with each other. So I think that it really translates on screen, which I think is what's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It's an incredibly supportive environment, and I think Sonequa is a big part of that. She leads with professionalism and enthusiasm and respect and joy and love, and she's a formidable and dynamic and wonderful leader. She's also hilarious. Sonequa can be sometimes I just listen to her and I just crack up because I think she can be very funny.
Well, and also with, to speak more of discovery and, kind of pushing the envelope, some people say, or just the inclusivity of now we have an African American female captain of a flagship. Like, let's just break barriers in all directions.
Mhm.
Honestly, I said to Sonequa the last time I saw her when we shot the little ending. I told her, I said that you will always be my captain because she will be.
You're bound and determined to make Kae and I cry yet.
No, I don't know. I'm fine.
All right. So, with everything that you've told us, with everything that goes into your professional life, your personal life, what are some things you do to make sure that you can stay balanced, or that you do for self-care?
Well, I love slacklining. It's something that I picked up during the pandemic. And slacklining is it's like a piece of webbing that you stretch between trees and in a park, and then you balance like it's like a couple feet off the ground. And I started doing it during the pandemic when there wasn't much socializing going on, and I thought there was no more profound act than to go to the park and find my balance. And I did it every day. And so if I need, and it's very much like a walking meditation. So it's like you're not only working on your balance and your core, but also your attention and your breathing, and it's beautiful. So I do slacklining as a sort of like a meditative balancing modality, I guess. Um, I do yoga and I'm cycling in the summer. So exercise, movement is medicine for me. So I want to make sure that I'm always moving or walking. And I'm an introvert, so I have to make sure that I get a lot of my juicy alone time. And then also, it's like cautionary tale for introverts. You've got to make sure that you're getting your alone time, but then you have to make sure that you're getting your social stimulation and making sure that you're working that balance. So I make myself good food, and I have a lot of wonderful friends that I spend time with, and I stay active and I stay creative, and I'm also always nurturing my artist. And so those are the ways that I kind of keep myself together and focused and keep going.
A more perfect answer does not exist. So
Nailed it. Have we forgotten that I blew that one answer yet, though?
You didn't blow it. You get extra credit when you turn that in later.
Okay.
And so to wrap up our incredible almost hour and a half interview now, I like to always end with
what?
I know.
Hour and a half?
Yeah.
How did that happen? That's amazing. I literally would have been like, it's been 30 minutes. That's crazy. Amazing.
I like to end with what our other cohort who isn't here tonight, with Charlie, what he usually calls like a nice softball. So what would be your one piece of life advice to leave us and our listeners with?
Based on my Star Trek experience, or just me as a human being?
Just David as a human.
That's a very big question.
Like I said, a nice little softball, no pressure.
A nice little softball. You know what? Here it is. Take good care of yourself and each other.
Beautiful.
Oh, I can't.
Oh, you're muted, Kae.
I was just saying, yes, that's a very beautiful way to kind of, I guess, bookend what we've been talking about this entire time. I feel like that's kind of been the theme of this interview, is taking care of yourself and others.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
It's a nice little bow.
Nailed it.
See, yeah, we got this.
We did it.
We did
Well,
it.
like we said, this has been an hour and a half. So, David, thank you so much for sticking with us through this. I know
my
that we had only
pleasure.
booked like an hour, and this was absolutely amazing. And you've been incredibly gracious, and it was truly a pleasure. And again, thank you, Cool Waters Productions, for helping make this happen, and thank you for all of our Patreon supporters who subscribe and listen. It makes everything that we do possible at Secret Friends Unite. If you want to learn more about the network or the other podcasts that we do, you can always visit secretfriendsunite.com, or you can find us on social media at Secret Friends Unite.
And
so, David,
I was just
go ahead.
To say, and if anybody out there is going to Star Trek Las Vegas, please do check out the Cool Waters Party. You will not regret it, and you get to raise money for some amazing charities.
Yes, I have been saving my pennies so that I can go into like the secret auctions and stuff. I'm very excited.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you tonight.
Oh, it's been our pleasure.
Thank you. And I want to say, thank you so much. And remember, everybody, wherever you go, go boldly.
And may you always find hope in the stars.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow @SecretFriendsU on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.